You check your portfolio. Again, same numbers, different day. You've been investing for months now, maybe years, and you're starting to realize something that makes your stomach turn. You're doing everything they told you to do. Buying index funds, dollar cost averaging, reading the newsletters, listening to the podcasts, following the market gurus on Twitter. And yet, the wealth you imagined, it's not coming. Not the way you thought it would. You watch people around you talking about real estate deals, private equity, angel investments, things you don't have access to, things that feel like a different world. And you start to wonder if you're playing a completely different game, a game where the rules were written for someone else. You're not losing money. That's not the problem. You're just not building wealth. Not real wealth. Not the kind that changes your life. Not the kind that buys back your time. You're saving. You're being responsible. You're doing what you're supposed to do. But deep down, you know it's not enough. And the worst part, you don't even know what you're missing because no one talks about it. Not in the videos you watch, not in the books you read, not in the advice your parents gave you. The top 10%, they're not smarter than you. They didn't start with more discipline. They didn't work harder in their 20s. They just know something you don't, and they're never going to tell you. Because the system works better when you stay where you are, putting your paycheck into the same funds, watching the same charts, hoping for the same 7% return, while they build empires. You wake up, you work, you invest what's left, you repeat. And every year the gap gets wider, not because you're failing, but because you're playing by rules that were designed to keep you comfortable, not wealthy. Comfortable. There's a difference. And somewhere inside, you feel it. You feel it when you see someone younger than you retire early. You feel it when you realize your savings won't buy the freedom you imagined. You feel it when you look at your future and realize it looks exactly like your present, just older. But here's the truth. The reason you're not building wealth isn't because you're bad at investing. It's because you're investing in the wrong things. And I don't just mean the wrong stocks. I mean the wrong asset classes, the wrong structures, the wrong timeline. The top 10% aren't buying what you're buying. They're not waiting for the market to go up. They're not hoping their ETF outperforms. They're not checking their brokerage account every morning. They're building cash flow. They're buying equity in businesses. They're investing in things that pay them monthly, not yearly, not when they sell, monthly. While you're trying to time the market, they're creating the market. While you're diversifying across 12 index funds, they're consolidating power in 3 real assets. While you're reading articles about compounding, they're compounding in ways the articles never mention. Because the articles aren't written for them. They're written for you, to keep you busy, to keep you believing that slow and steady wins the race. And it does, if the race is retirement at 65. But that's not the race they're running. They're running a different race. One where the finish line is freedom, not age. Freedom. And freedom doesn't come from a diversified portfolio. It comes from ownership. Ownership of assets that work without you. Ownership of businesses that generate profit while you sleep. Ownership of real estate that pays you every month, whether the market crashes or not. You've been taught to be an investor. They learned to be an owner. And that's the gap. That's the thing no one explains. Investors wait. Owners build. Investors hope the price goes up.
Owners create the value that makes the price go up. Investors react to the economy. Owners create the economy. You think it's about money. It's not. It's about access. Access to deals you'll never see on Robinhood. Access to opportunities that don't have a ticker symbol. Access to networks that don't take applications. The top 10% aren't just rich, they're connected. And connection is the most valuable asset you don't own. Because wealth isn't built in isolation. It's built in rooms you're not in yet, at dinners you're not invited to, in conversations that happen off the record, in deals that close with a handshake, not a signature. And the system is designed to keep you outside those rooms, not because you're not good enough, but because if everyone had access, the game would change. So they give you the stock market, they give you mutual funds, they give you financial literacy courses that teach you how to budget, how to save, how to invest in things that make other people wealthy. And you follow the plan, because it's the only plan you know. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw a billionaire talk about their index fund strategy? When was the last time you saw someone build generational wealth off a 401k? You haven't, because that's not how it works.
That's the blueprint they sell you, not the one they follow. The one they follow looks completely different. It starts with income-producing assets, real estate that doesn't just appreciate but pays rent, businesses that don't just grow but distribute profit, private equity that doesn't rely on public markets. It continues with leverage, not the kind that puts you in debt, the kind that multiplies your capability. Other people's money, other people's time, other people's expertise. They're not working harder, they're working differently. And they're not waiting 30 years to see results. They're seeing results this quarter, this month, this week. Because the wealth they're building isn't tied to retirement. It's tied to right now. And that changes everything. When your investments pay you now, you're not stuck. You're not waiting for permission to quit your job. You're not hoping the market recovers. You're not praying your company doesn't downsize. You're free. Not someday, now. And that freedom gives you options. Options to take risks. Options to invest in yourself. Options to build even more. It compounds differently. Not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because when you're not desperate, you make better decisions. When you're not afraid, you see opportunities others miss. When you're not living paycheck to paycheck, you can afford to think long term. And that's the real advantage, not the money, the mindset. The top 10% think differently because they live differently. They live differently because they invested differently. And they invested differently because someone showed them a different way. Someone gave them access. Someone brought them into the room. And now you're starting to realize no one's coming to bring you in. You have to find your own way. And that starts with unlearning everything you've been taught. It starts with questioning the advice that's kept you safe but not wealthy. It starts with understanding that the market isn't the only place to build, that stocks aren't the only asset, that waiting isn't the only strategy. You've been told to be patient, and patience is valuable, but not when it's just another word for passive, not when it's just another way to stay small. The top 10% aren't patient, they're strategic. They're patient with growth, but aggressive with opportunity. They wait for the right deal, but when they see it, they move fast. They don't hesitate. They don't second guess. They don't need permission because they've built the resources to act. And that's what you're missing.
Knowledge, resources, the ability to move when it matters, the ability to say yes when others have to say no, the ability to take the call, make the offer, close the deal. While you're still thinking about it, still researching, still waiting for the perfect moment, they're already in, already building, already 10 steps ahead. and the gap widens, not because they're better, but because they're faster. And speed comes from certainty. Certainty comes from experience. Experience comes from doing. And you can't do what you don't know exists. So you stay in the same loop, reading the same advice, making the same moves, getting the same results, wondering why it's not working, wondering why you're still here, still grinding, still hoping, still one bad quarter away from panic. And the answer is simple. You're playing the wrong game. The game they want you to play. The game that keeps you dependent. The game that keeps you working. The game that keeps you watching your portfolio instead of building your empire. Because empires aren't built on index funds. They're built on ownership, on control, on assets that generate wealth whether you're working or not, on systems that outlive you, on legacies that compound across generations. And none of that happens by accident. None of that happens by following the plan they gave you. It happens by rejecting that plan. By realizing that financial security and financial freedom are not the same thing. Security is having enough. Freedom is having options. And options require a different strategy. A strategy that prioritizes cash flow over appreciation, that prioritizes equity over salary, that prioritizes ownership over employment. The top 10% aren't trying to retire rich. They're trying to live rich, right now, today, this year. And they're doing it by building assets that pay them now, not later, not when they're 65, now, while they still have the energy to enjoy it, while they still have the time to build more, while they still have the vision to see what's next. Because wealth isn't the finish line, it's the starting point. It's what allows you to play bigger, to think bigger, to become bigger. And you can't get there by being safe. You can't get there by doing what everyone else is doing. You can't get there by staying comfortable. You get there by making a choice to stop investing like everyone else, a choice to start thinking like an owner, a choice to pursue assets that most people don't understand, assets that require more effort, more knowledge, more risk, but also more reward, real reward, not just a number on a screen, but income, freedom, power. And maybe that scares you. Maybe you're thinking, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the capital. I don't have the connections. I don't have the experience. And you're right. You don't. Not yet. But neither did they. They just started anyway. They started small. They started messy. They started before they were ready. And they learned. They failed. They adjusted. They grew. And eventually, they became the kind of person who belongs in those rooms. Not because they were chosen, but because they built themselves into someone worth choosing. And that's the part no one tells you. You're not locked out because of your bank account. You're locked out because of your identity. Because you still see yourself as someone who invests, not someone who owns. Someone who saves, not someone who builds. Someone who waits for opportunities, not someone who creates them. And until that changes, nothing else will. You can read all the books, take all the courses, follow all the accounts, but if you're still thinking like everyone else, you'll keep getting what everyone else gets. Average returns, average outcomes, average life. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that's enough. Maybe you're okay with slow and steady, with safe and predictable, with comfortable and small. But if you're still watching this, I don't think you are. I think you know there's more. You just don't know how to get there. And the truth is, no one can tell you exactly how, because your path won't look like theirs. Your opportunities won't look like theirs. Your timeline won't look like theirs. But the principles will. ownership over speculation, cash flow over appreciation, action over analysis, network over knowledge, speed over safety, and identity over everything. Because the wealthiest people you know didn't start with money, they started with a decision. A decision to stop being a passenger, to stop letting other people drive, to stop waiting for permission, and to start building something that belongs to them, not their employer, not their brokerage, not the market, them. And once you make that decision, everything changes. Not overnight, but inevitably, because you stop investing like someone trying to get rich, and you start building like someone who already is. So here's the question. Are you going to keep doing what you've been doing, or are you finally ready to do something different?